This is WAB's Week in Review, the show where we look back at the last few days of stories from your WAB News team. I'm Alex Helmick, managing editor of WAB News, and coming up on the show, in Georgia, clean energy investment in solar and electric vehicle manufacturing were expected to create about 16,000 new jobs, more than any other state. But this week, politicians in D.C. voted to gut renewable energy tax credits that, until now, has helped propel the projects.
They'll have felt the burn already, and they'll say, while it may look good today, it may not look good in 4 years.
Coming up, we'll have more on what the cuts could mean for Georgia and for one community counting on those new jobs. First up, though, a local journalist who was arrested while covering a protest on Chamblee Tucker Road is now being released on bond from an immigration detention center. As WABE's Shemaine Cruz told us, the move allows him to continue fighting his deportation to El Salvador.
Mario Guevara's case sparked outcry from press freedom organizations after he was arrested while live streaming a protest last month and then turned over to federal immigration authorities. The Department of Homeland Security claims Guevara entered the country illegally in 2004. But his attorneys dispute that and say he has valid work authorization and a pending application for a green card. An immigration judge is ordering Guevara be released on a $7,500 bond while his case plays out in court. The Committee to Protect Journalists says it welcomes the order, but is concerned by the prosecution's argument that live streaming presented a danger to the community by compromising law enforcement activities. Shemaine Cruz, WABE News.
Well, as the massive tax and spending package backed by President Donald Trump and most Republicans moves forward, there are concerns that federal funding cuts and policy changes will negatively affect Georgia's current state budget. WABE's Raul Bali explained.
More than $67 billion of federal, state, and other funds makes up the 2026 state budget, which took effect this week. About $13 billion federal dollars are for Medicaid, which covers 2.2 million Georgians.
Children, pregnant women, pregnant and postpartum women, individuals with disabilities, older adults, some very low-income parents and caregivers, as well as some low-wage workers.
That's Leah Chan with the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. She says Medicaid in Georgia is 66% funded by the federal government.
So effectively, what these federal funding cuts to Medicaid do is really shift costs to the state. So it really forces the state to either pick up the tab or make difficult decisions about who continues to receive these services and what benefits they're offered.
Chan notes the legislation would restrict some of the ways the state funds Medicaid, including hospital and nursing home provider fees. State leaders do have options with billions of surplus dollars and a significant capacity to issue bonds. Raul Bali, WABE News.
Atlanta after-school and summer program providers are sounding the alarm after the Trump administration abruptly paused their federal funding. WABE's Meme Shu reported the story.
Last year, Georgia received $47 million through the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant. The YMCA of Metro Atlanta says it needs that money to reimburse expenses for its May after-school program and the June summer day camp. Starting in August, after-school programs in 23 Georgia YMCAs could also be in jeopardy. Kim Nelson is the Chief Program Officer of the YMCA of Metro Atlanta.
You're basically saying that majority of us would have to close our doors and not offer programming.
She says after-school programs are crucial for working parents.
It's hurting the families financially, and it's also going to be impacting kids that need the extra help to be able to thrive in school.
The freeze also impacts around $1.7 million in funding for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Atlanta, which would affect 500 students across 6 after-school programs. This is part of the Trump administration's ongoing review of education grant programs. A spokesperson from the White House told WABE that these programs have been, quote, grossly misused to subsidize a radical left-wing agenda, unquote. The spokesperson did not say when the review will be finished. Meme Shu, WABE News.
In Georgia, clean energy investments were expected to create thousands of new jobs, more than any other state. But the president and most Republicans moved forward on a budget bill this week that would slash tax incentives for clean energy. WABE's Sam Greenglass reported on what the cuts could mean for Georgia's burgeoning solar and electric vehicle industries and for one community that was counting on those jobs.
On the edge of tiny Cedartown near the Alabama border, pallets of retired solar panels arrive from across the southeast. This cavernous former yarn factory doesn't look like much, but after its new owner, SolarCycle, gets up and running, millions of solar panels will be recycled here every year.
An aluminum frame, pigtails where the actual solar circuits are connected, and then you've got glass, and then you've got the actual solar photovoltaic cells.
In an orange vest, facilities manager Tyler Grimes leads me around stacks of shiny panels.
Most folks associate recycling with paper cups, glass bottles. We are actually taking a high-tech product, recycling it, and putting it back into a high-tech supply chain.
SolarCycle received a $64 million tax credit through the Inflation Reduction Act, which aimed to boost renewable energy. SolarCycle plans to use the incentive to build another factory nearby to make glass for new solar panels. Grimes says the two plants together will create 1,200 jobs.
We want to be a major player, diversifying the supply chain so it's not all coming from Asia. Doing it in Polk County is very close to home for me.
But SolarCycle CEO Suvi Sharma says groundbreaking is on hold as Congress moves to gut the tax credits.
One of the worst things for running a company or organization is uncertainty.
SolarCycle already got its tax credit, but if Congress eliminates or rolls back incentives for consumers and other manufacturers going forward, that could affect demand for what SolarCycle's doing.
The more solar there is, the more solar there is to recycle, and the more solar panels there are to install that need the type of glass that we plan on making.
$14 billion in announced investments have already been canceled nationwide, according to E2, a group that tracks clean energy projects. Sharma doesn't think curtailing the tax credits will kill solar, but he does worry that smaller installers will struggle to stay afloat, and manufacturers will think twice about setting up shop in the U.S.
They'll have felt the burn already, and they'll say, while it may look good today, it may not look good in 4 years. And so that's where I think the stakes are highest.
The stakes are also high for communities like Cedartown.
On Saturday mornings, this place was packed up and down Main Street. We're trying to get back to that.
Philip Gamage is wearing a Cedartown High School t-shirt. His family's operated a funeral home in town since 1950, when Northwest Georgia's textile industry was still booming.
Tangible around here is, you got a job for me? Now we can talk. And 1,200 jobs is going to mean a lot to this community.
While SolarCycle hasn't done much hiring yet, Cedartown is preparing for more people. There's talk of new housing and training programs at the local technical college. Gamage wants to see the tax credits preserved.
That's a no-brainer. If that many people are going to find jobs, that's good. I don't see how anybody could have a negative view of that.
Someone who does have a negative view, the Republican Congresswoman here, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She slammed the projects at the Georgia GOP convention in June.
They always say, Marjorie, this is going to bring jobs to your district. Baloney.
A majority of clean energy projects announced since 2022 are in Republican districts, which advocates hoped would insulate them from cuts. But Greene says local unemployment is low.
And so when they plop a big fat battery production plant from South Korea, they're having to steal workers from Georgia companies. And I think that is a bunch of BS.
Not every Republican agrees. Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter, who represents a coastal district with a new multi-billion-dollar Hyundai electric vehicle plant, defended the tax credits in the Inflation Reduction Act at a recent event.
We should not take a sledgehammer to the IRA. Instead, we should take a scalpel. If these policies result in stabilizing our supply chain, or if they result in domestic manufacturing, why wouldn't we look at them? Why wouldn't we keep them?
In the end, Carter, who's running for U.S. Senate, voted in May for the House version of the bill and the clean energy rollbacks. President Trump says he'd like the final bill on his desk by July 4th. In Cedartown, Georgia, Sam Gringlass, WABE News.
You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. You can find more at wabe.org. Well, as state and federal governments adopt strict policies around transgender people, a Georgia nonprofit is trying to make the lives of queer and trans young adults a little easier by helping them with the legal process to change their names. For our Beyond Pride series, WABE's Dormaya Vance reported on a recent name change clinic in Atlanta.
At the beginning of his second term in office, President Donald Trump moved to ban trans people from serving in the military. Last month, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld laws in places across the country that prohibit gender-affirming care for minors. And this week, a Georgia law is going into effect banning trans girls from playing school sports.
I try not to think about the attacks too much because it is emotionally draining.
Liz Harding Chow is the founder of the Southern Legal Center for Youth, or SLCY.
That's the reason why we do these clinics. It's just something small that we can do that has a big impact in our young people's lives.
SLCY recently hosted its second name change clinic located in Midtown Atlanta.
So my former name is Juwan. And I still have that name, a part of my name.
Princess Juwan Durbin was a client during SLCY's first name change event in April. The nonprofit's volunteer legal staff walked them through filing required documents and paying for the service. Durbin says it took about 2 months.
The love that was put into the process to ensure that, I had a name that affirmed me, was something that changed my life.
And now Durbin's the nonprofit's interim vice president. They say helping with a name change is validating, especially now.
To be a queer Black person in the South currently, in this climate, we're not always seen because we didn't get to choose our names. And so to be able to take back your power and to affirm yourself, I think is so important.
Staff with the Southern Legal Center for Youth say they plan to host another name change clinic in the fall. Dormaya Vance, WABE News.
For the first time in more than a decade, Atlanta is losing more office space than it's adding. That's according to a new report. And as WABE's Marlon Hyde told us, following the onset of the pandemic, remote work exploded, leaving Atlanta's commercial real estate market in a major transition.
As of this year, about 700,000 square feet of office space in Atlanta is slated to find new life as hotels, industrial warehouses, and multifamily housing developments. That's according to new data from CBRE, a global commercial real estate firm. Will Yao is their vice chairman.
I'm already aware of a lot of deals. I'm working on some deals right now that will be conversions, and it's multiples of the square footage that we've reported this year for Atlanta.
Yao says challenges lie ahead for these projects, such as labor shortages, high interest rates, and rising construction costs likely to be exacerbated by tariffs. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
And finally today, is it safe to swim in the Chattahoochee this holiday weekend? WAB environment reporter Marissa Mecki says she gets this question all the time. And as she told us, it's easy to check water quality, and she tells us how.
Jess Sterling with the Chattahoochee River Keeper stands over a bridge on Paces Ferry.
But we made up this special water sampler that fits these sterile bags, and we can drop it off of a bridge.
She's sampling the Chattahoochee River for bacteria that can get people sick.
It's a PVC pipe with 2 eye hooks that we can tie the bag around, and then it's attached to a rope.
Wearing medical gloves, she carefully lowers the sterile baggie all the way down to the water and dunks it in.
Maybe a few inches below the surface.
This is for the Chattahoochee River Keeper's new summer project, a swim guide. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, the organization is posting a map of water quality monitoring results at popular swimming and recreation spots every week. CRK made this tool to make it easy for folks in the area to check if the river is safe to swim in.
With a simple green check mark or red X based on EPA's recreational water quality criteria for E. coli bacteria.
The map uses data collected from a network of 300 volunteers, collecting samples up and down the Chattahoochee every week to check for E. coli. Sterling says E. coli is found in warm-blooded animals' poop. Dog and wildlife poop can wash into rivers when it rains, and the bacteria can also come from leaks in sewage pipes. She says the Hooch's water quality tends to be worse when it's rained the previous 2 days, which she says, unfortunately for swimmers and inner tubers, has been more often this summer. Otherwise, and some skeptics might not believe this statement,
water quality in the Chattahoochee River is generally good, and water quality on our lakes is also excellent.
And she says that includes the river from Lake Lanier all the way down south of Atlanta. Sterling says, based on CRK's data, the bacteria levels in the river are 80% lower than they were in the 1970s, largely due to major sewer upgrades. Chattahoochee River Keeper's water quality map is available every Friday on their website. Another group in Georgia also shares up-to-date water quality information.
Part of our new features that we've come out with this week include a really intuitive, interactive user interface
Andrea White is the Community Programs Coordinator for Georgia Rivers. She manages paddling guide trainings and the Georgia River Guide app. She says the tool reports E. coli and a bunch of other information on several Georgia rivers.
Every access point in the Georgia River Guide is a public access point.
And details on if you need a permit, dam releases, water flow rates,
parking fees, shuttle ride, local camping facilities, a list of fishing guides,
plus maps. Now, White says Georgia Rivers is looking for a new grant funding to add new rivers to the guide and more interactive safety features to the app this year. She says there are lots of places to get out on the water in Georgia this year, in the Hooch and beyond. So, plan ahead, wear your life jacket, and safe paddling. Marissa Mecki, WABE News.
That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for all the great work. You can get more at WABE.org. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE and for listening to The Week in Review.